Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucy, and some of you know me as Triangle Investor from X. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Major, GoviEx Uranium CEO. Dan, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Lucian. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Dan, it has been a rough couple of weeks, months for the company with the decision from the Niger government to withdraw your mining rights. Did you saw this coming, and what will be the company? What will the company do in the next steps in defending its rights?
As we've said in our press releases, we felt we were doing what had been asked of us, was just to start exploitation. So we were equally as surprised to have the license revoked. The next steps, clearly we have Mutanga, and that carries on. And I think there's a lot of value to be had in our stock with just Mutanga alone. With the Nigerians, we have to follow process. The first stage under our mining convention with them is to seek an amicable approach. We have written to them, as we said in our shareholder letter, asking them to reach an amicable approach. Obviously, if that is not possible, then we'll have to consider our legal alternatives from that point. But we won't make that decision until we reach the end of the current process. Okay.
How was the communication with the people from the government so far and now, let's say? And is there, I know maybe it's a hypothetical question, but is there a possibility or option for a peaceful solution or some form of mediation, arbitrage?
Look, we communicate regularly through a number of different circuits. We ensure that we've got good coverage down in Niger, not just through my country manager or through myself, but other routes as well. I mean, you need to make sure that you're covering many stakeholders off, and we continue to do that. And even the feedback that we were getting during that period was very positive and constructive, and hence we were even more surprised. And we've continued that process, and we continue to try and find a solution that takes us forward. But as it currently stands, we're waiting for the government to respond to our letter. We're obviously doing what we can in the background, but at the end of the day, the government has to respond to us. And if they want to carry on and have an amicable result, then we would be willing to negotiate. If they're not, then, as I say, we'll have to look at our alternative.
Got it. Daniel, I have done some my own math about investments in Madaouela, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. GoviEx has invested more than 100 million according to my calculations. I remember it was 37 million came from Toshiba loans, and you had some roughly around 30 million from Cameco in 2008. So more than 100 million invested in Madaouela. Am I correct with this?
You're absolutely right. I mean, over the long term, your numbers is a reasonable estimate of where we'd got to. This has been a long project. I mean, we started on a greenfield exploration opportunity back in 2007. We drilled it out. We did 650,000 meters of drilling on that. We have one of the largest mineral resources in the uranium sector out there with over 120 million pounds and with exploration upside on it. We're taking it through all the permitting stages. So, there's a lot of investment, and hence, our disappointment as well that we were on the path to moving this project forward. As we announced, we had got initial indications for over $200 million worth of debt. And unfortunately, the timing of that was kind of juxtapositioned with a coup. Which then put everything onto hold for us. So, we were advancing this project fairly solidly until the change in government in Niger.
Yeah, even if you don't get the permits back, is there a way to monetize the data intel you have done on Madaouela in some way?
Well, I mean, obviously, we've done a lot of work. If somebody does acquire that license and, and we haven't taken a legal action as well, then yes, I mean, that data has value. I mean, we've just bought data recently for a company in Zambia because they're no longer operating there, but we'd like to look at the exploration opportunities that Zambia is offering us on the Karoo sand zones. So, data has value and can be traded.
Okay. Mutanga, Zambia, you're pretty busy over there. Can you provide us an update on the current works and plans going forward?
Well, obviously, the key focus is getting that feasibility study out of the way, getting the ESIA that goes with it finished as well, and the relocation. So obviously, at this point, I can't give you any details of where we are. And in fact, I don't have all the numbers myself yet, so it would be a false statement. But what I will say is that it's going really well. We're still well set for, the second half of this year to get that result out. We're at that point now where you're doing the trade-offs, where you're starting to get data and you're looking at your designs. And I have to just remind everybody, we're going from a PEA to an FS. This is a big step forward. The original data was on PFS, but the metallurgical test work, we've repeated all of that. The results have come back really, really excellent against what was done before. And hopefully that will provide us some benefits. I mean, just to reiterate here, it's soft rock. It's highly permeable, so you get fast leach rates. It's cheap to crush. Acid consumptions are low because the rock is well liberated. So these are all the positives that support this project, and hopefully we will pull all those together in the final result. But at the moment, I'm just kind of doing the trade-offs, figuring out, we've got 5 deposits here. Then, I've got to work around them all. So everything is looking good at the moment. ESIA, the guys there are just waiting for the final infrastructure, and then we can file that ESIA. So everything's looking good. We've had good meetings with the government as well. They're very positive, very supportive. You've got to remember that Zambia wants to diversify its copper production. It wants to grow its copper production, first thing, but it also is looking to diversify where it stands. In fact, it's got a conference coming out towards the end of this year called Insaka, which is the Zambian word for Indaba. And its title is diversification of the Zambian mining industry. So, we sit very well into that diversification.
Okay. You mentioned acid. No acid problems in Zambia, right?
No acid problems in Zambia. I mean, with that and the Congo, both being copper producers and smelting copper, you end up with a lot of acid produce. In fact, Zambia is a net acid exporter. So there's plenty of acid around.
Okay, so Daniel, you are on track to complete feasibility study this year. After that, it's financing. So when do you expect that process to commence and finish, the financing part, I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the financing can only obviously start from a debt perspective once we have the model in our hands from the feasibility study. I started this process just going around at Indaba, around the Southern African ones, and a lot of good positive feedback. In fact, we've had emails recently from a couple of them saying, please confirm you're going to be done. In fact, the other positive we had is that one of those potential lenders from Niger, once we advised them of our position, reached out and said, well, okay, guys, please tell me when you finish the feasibility study for Mutanga, because we'd like to have a look at that one. So I don't see the debt side being, a difficult. I mean, it's an easier jurisdiction, but, it's not as unconventional as Niger was when we went into that process. Zambia is much more, associated with SADC. So don't see that being a problem. And then we'll just accelerate into development as quickly as we can.
Okay, so start of uranium production would be like 2 years from securing the financing, right?
Correct. At the moment, we're going through the implementation plan, but once we have a clear position of how long that time frame is, that would be a nice round number. So let's assume we finish it at the beginning of this year. Give me 9 to 12 months on the financing structuring. You'd then be looking production roughly 3 years from now.
Okay. You mentioned Zambia as a jurisdiction, but can you expand a bit? How is the political public support for uranium mining in Zambia? Any meaningful opposition which investors should be aware of?
On the last part, none. I mean, we've had very good stakeholder engagement. We've had constructive feedback from a number of NGOs, but their position has been very much making sure the legislation is in place, and they were pushing to that. And as long as we follow the legislation, they're happy. The people around us are very keen because they want jobs, and we bring those jobs. And obviously, we're going to design a project that meets all the international standards. I mean, there's no reason why we would not. You have to remember Zambia actually has some uranium production part way. So Lumwana copper, for example, has uranium in its copper. It takes it through to an ion exchange resin, which it stores. Kylocaria, when Paladin owned it, which obviously owned by Lotus now, its export route was through Zambia out into Walfish Bay. So, there's not a lack of experience here. Zambia is a country that actually wants to go with nuclear reactors as well. So they have a support for nuclear energy underlying in this whole package as well.
Yeah, but how is the situation with skilled labor in Zambia and potential local workforce training? Have you done something on that field?
Absolutely. I mean, we started 2 years ago when we realized that most of our population didn't actually have English as a first language. So we've taken something like 400 students, adult students through school. They'll be passing out at the end of this year with their grade 4 or better. Some of them have gone well past it. We're trialing at the moment some trade training at the moment, and then we're going to build that package up. So a lot of those jobs that we can bring through from a training point of view at the lower levels, we can definitely get from the local communities. But again, Zambia is a mining jurisdiction. So a lot of those other skills that we need on processing, on senior supervision skills, we can get within Zambia, and we can continue with our commitment to 100% local employment strategy.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, now with basically you are now basically a single project company. I mean, until this resolves in Niger, would you be open to acquire projects in other jurisdictions and continents, for example, Canada or United States?
I mean, we always look at M&A. I mean, that's how we got Zambia in the first place back in 2016, 2017. We decided we needed to diversify the strategy because we understood political risk and how it could influence you within Africa. And thankfully, that's exactly what we did do. Sorry. So, from that perspective, yeah, we're always open to look at M&A. Do I want to look in other jurisdictions? I mean, I think that would be down to the asset that we're looking at and the strategy we're looking at. Am I going to rush into Canada? I mean, I had to smile the other day when I remember years ago a map of the Athabasca projects with like a little dial. I saw a map of the Athabasca projects the other day. It's like enormous. The Athabasca is starting to take over the whole of Saskatchewan as people get closeology. So you've got to be very careful as well, not just to go after closeology for the sake of it. I mean, it still costs money. US similar. I mean, I need to know what we're doing. So for us, I think with us, there's a lot of potential still in Africa to be had. You look at that whole Karoo Sands, it's massively underexplored, and there are opportunities to be had within that package. And that Karoo Sands goes all the way from Tanzania through Malawi, through Zambia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia. I mean, it's a massive belt that is sitting there. So there are opportunities across the board.
Okay. Daniel, what's the cash position for the company? Are you covered for Mutanga works this year, or you will have to raise?
No, we have raised money at the beginning of the year. It was to cover all the feasibility study for Mutanga, and those initial works in Niger. Obviously, with Niger now in stasis, we won't be expending very much money up there for a while. So, we're well covered at the moment.
Okay. I always enjoy your uranium market comments. What's your take on the current status of the market and the performance in the remainder for 2024? Your comment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we had a lot of waiting around for the US government to define its position on Russian imports. We then had to wait for the waivers to go on through. So that kind of process has in the market. We've seen waivers being issued out to Centra. So I think a lot of the unknown is kind of known in the current market. I personally think that for the rest of this year, we're probably going to see the uranium price stay around where it is. If you look at the covered positions, most utilities are well covered for this year and next year. They've already sorted themselves out. But from 26 onwards, 2027 particularly, most of the RFPs that are going out at the moment are from 2027 onwards. Utilities are looking for that material and knowing where it's going to come from. At that point, those waivers effectively will really be kicking in, whereas in the short term, they're not. They will certainly be kicking in much later on. And you're looking at project risk as well out there as we push further and need projects to come on stream to fill the gap. And if they don't, then we've got project risk. So I think in the short term, expect uranium price to be stubbornly around this sort of $85 to $90 level, both on term and on the spot market. Probably into next year, we'll see a little bit move up. And then certainly towards the back end of next year, I expect to see prices continue to go higher as that project risk continues to kick in.
Okay, final thing, do you have a message for your current shareholders and potential new ones?
Yeah, look, obviously for the current shareholders, it was Madaouela is a disappointment as much for us as anybody else. We're currently trying to figure out our path forward there. We had done a lot of work. We had maintained our position. We were looking at developing that project, and so very disappointing. But I think, as you and I were discussing before this call, for all shareholders, particularly those who are currently holding their shares and those looking at it coming in, Rick Rule is always key at his Sprott conferences to stand up and say, whenever you're looking at a stock to invest in, look at its current position and its current price. If you think there's value at the current price, then you buy the stock. If you don't, even if and the stock has gone up, then you sell. I mean, it's as simple as that. And despite the fact that we had started to push investors towards Mutanga and explain it, you've seen what's happened to our share price. We have pretty well just traded out Niger completely, yet no one's really giving us the credit for the Mutanga project. Hopefully that feasibility study coming out will really underpin that strategy, that rationale of where this project is. Zambia is a great country. I mean, it really is. You've got a really good government there. I mean, it's the longest running democratic government in Africa since 1964. So, it was the largest copper producer for a long time as well. So, yes, there's real value here. We'll work on Zambia and push that one into development. That's our strategy. We were pushing Niger into production as well. Everything was slowed down as a result of what happened on July the 26th, or just over a year ago. We had sanctions, etc. So, but, we'll continue to work there, but Zambia, real value to be had.
Yeah. That was Daniel Major, GoviEx Uranium CEO. Daniel, thank you for coming to my show, and I wish you luck going forward.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity to chat these things through with you.